And then we'll just give that a couple minutes to warm up.
Got you.
See who pops up in the chat.
Hey, hey. Push this back a bit. I'm getting messed up here.
This being recorded for later. Yes, it is being recorded. You'll be able to find it on Facebook and YouTube, and eventually I'll edit these down and put them up as well, so you'll get an edited version, and you don't have to hear all the in-between stuff that we're doing. But I decided to do this for a couple reasons. One, Instagram doesn't seem to grow as fast as I would like it to. So I get a little bit frustrated with that. I say that, but earlier this year I had like 2,000 followers, and today I just hit 40,000. So to be able to do that, I think within like a 10-month period is what it took me. I think that's pretty good overall in terms of growth. So that's exciting. That's cool. But when you see some of your stuff do really, really well, and then you gain no followers from that, it's a little weird. And then of course, are you on TikTok?
No, I canceled it. I was on and got off.
Oh, it's brutal because you'll do a great video, you put it up, it'll get 1 million views, and then your next video will get like 2,000, and you're just like, well, what's the difference between these? And if you contact them and mention it, hey, this is really inconsistent. Why is this? Can it just like not be inconsistent?
Right.
They send back the message that, oh, well, you need to take our courses and do all this stuff. And I'm just like, yeah, not going to happen, man. Because ultimately I think what they want is for you to be on TikTok Shop so that you're selling and promoting and all that stuff, which I noticed I heard it on Ed Milet. I've heard it on a couple other podcasts, and I've seen it on TV now that TikTok is advertising on television and and on podcasts. So I'm just like,
yeah, they like took a hot 1 second to go commercial.
Yeah, I'm like, wait a minute, why are we reverting back to all these old things? Like, what are you trying to gain from this in terms of, getting more people to join, or what the issue is? But it really comes down to if they treated their creators a little bit differently in terms of just that consistent growth, allow it to be consistent. Don't shut things down so completely.
Yeah.
You'd get more people on the platform and they'd be in a place of enjoyment. Just weird. So, and I was talking to somebody else today because they have that STEM section. I'm like, you need a personal development section. Like, separate personal development from the regular algorithm so that people can go directly and get their fill of all the stuff and things that help them through coaching and development and growth and expansion.
I agree.
That's my 2 cents on social media.
Yeah, I couldn't learn it like that fast. I was like, I need to like clear out some of the noise. I am like TikTok free.
Nice. All right. Well, I'll give my spiel and then we'll get into this, and we'll see if I can get it right in the first take. Welcome to the Blueprint Podcast, where we throw out the old blueprint so you can become who you were always meant to be. I'm your host, Jason Smith. And if you haven't already, make sure you smash that like button and follow us on social media. Make sure you click the subscribe button. Yeah, see, I do this every time.
That's all right.
Make sure you click the subscribe button and share this podcast on social media and tag me in it at JBirdFit. Today, I have mindset coach Nicole Frazier.
What up?
Welcome.
I am thrilled to be here.
Awesome. Well, Nicole, tell us who you are and who you help.
So I am Nicole Frazier, 45, about to be 46 in February. I am a certified mindset.
No, you're not.
Yes.
We're the same age?
Yeah, brother.
Oh, man. I thought you're like a decade younger than me, man.
No, it's I do what you do. I live healthy. I eat healthy.
Oh, yeah, you eat healthy and you work out?
Yeah. Wear sunscreen.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
So, certified mindset coach. I officially help anybody struggling with their mindset. And I guess my signature approach is mixing subconscious reprogramming and faith to help them kick all those like limiting beliefs, old shitty stories, labels, playing small, the imposter syndrome that comes up as we're starting our businesses, to the curb. And I that's all stuff I struggled with my whole life.
So
I
let's
was
go.
like, yeah.
No, let's go into that a little bit deeper. What is subconscious reprogramming?
So basically, our mind is part conscious thought, part subconscious thought. It's 95% of our mind that is subconscious programming. Like our mind's a big computer and it stores everything, and our mind thinks in pictures. That's why, like, when you think of something, like, usually, like, an image pops up.
Mhm.
And basically, when people are trying to change, like, even like in your world and stuff, they're trying to get healthy, they're trying to get fit, they're using the conscious part of their mind to do that. They're trying to change their behaviors, they're trying to change their environment. But that's like at the very low level conscious part of your mind. Our mind, if you think of it in like a big funnel, it's like your purpose, your identity, your values, your beliefs, your potential. So, like, when people try to change, whether it's self esteem or whether it's getting healthy and going to the gym, and you're trying to just like, well, if I just start doing this, I'm just going to start journaling, I'm just going to start saying affirmations, I'm just going to like go walk every day or whatever. Um, Normally, people fall back and revert to those shitty behaviors because somewhere deep in your subconscious, you don't really believe that you're valuable, you're worthy. Like when we're talking about like self esteem, or that you could ever be the type of person that could be fit long term. You're not a focused, dedicated person. So when you're trying to make any kind of change in your life, and you're just using your willpower, which is that 5% of your mind, you fail and revert back as soon as that willpower runs out. I always like to use the analogy of like you're working in an office, somebody drops off a tray of cookies in the back at 10 a.m. You're like, I'm not having those cookies. But like by 3 p.m., you're like, fuck it, this day, I'm having the cookie.
Right.
Right. So like
Especially if it's chocolate chip, it's really
yeah,
hard to pass
your
up.
willpower ran out. So
Yeah.
on my journey, I tried every frickin' thing. Every book behind me is a self-help book. And I was always like, why can't I frickin' change long term? Why am I on this roller coaster? And it wasn't until I stumbled upon changing with a coach on the subconscious level that I was like, wow, I am not all those other things that I thought I was, because that's how I was acting and showing up in the world. That's just who I became once I started to believe all the stories and the negative experiences and things like that. So once you clear that away, change is like freaking effortless, because what you believe about yourself actually shifts. So when you believe, no, I'm not this person, I'm this person, then what you value changes, what you believe your potential changes. um, then you could start to shift your behaviors, because it just naturally falls in line. You're like, well, I don't eat crap and lay on the couch all day. I'm a healthy person. I take care of myself. So it's like everything falls in line when you clear away like what's clogging basically your conscious mind.
And with New Year's coming up, this is such a great conversation to have and to listen to. And you're probably going to want to put this on repeat, guys, maybe later in the year as we get
Mhm.
closer to New Year's, because, and this always happens. I'm going to do all these things starting January 1st. I'm going to start knocking it out. That first week's going to be amazing. I signed up for the gym. I got all this stuff going on. I bought the food. I'm so prepared for all of this. And then 2 weeks into that, we're struggling. We're having a
Yeah.
hard time. I can't keep up the pace. And then ultimately we fall off and we find ourselves going back to this default place, because that's just what we know. That's what we're used to. That's, I know what's going to happen if I default back to this position. I can anticipate what's going to happen next, and that feels comfortable and that feels good.
Yeah.
And it's really hard for us to sit back and go, well, wait a minute, you actually deserve to have those things that you desire. You deserve to have that level of fitness that you've been working towards. And I'm guilty of this. I do this. This has been every year for most of my life. And it's, I get really fit, and then I don't necessarily fall off, but it's like, this is good enough. And I
Yeah.
stop and I don't follow through. And 2 years ago, I had shoulder surgery, and that just morphed into, well, now I'm just not going to do anything because I'm struggling. This is difficult, and I was still exercising. I was working my legs and doing other things, but I didn't realize the difficulty that I was going to have coming back from that surgery at 43 years old, turning 44. It was a full year before I got that push and pull strength, and I could do pull ups again, and I could do dips again. It was really difficult for me to get through that. Well, in that time, you gain this weight
Yeah.
and you start beating yourself up because, well, like you said, I am fit. I do take care of myself. I do eat well. And, there was some underlying things that were going on that I didn't realize at the time. And that's why I was struggling so hard to actually lose the weight that I had gained uh, from having that surgery and being in a state of recovery. So,
Yeah.
give yourself grace, guys, as you're going through this. It's not easy. It's hard,
Yeah.
but you're worthy and you can get through it.
Amen.
So when we talk about subconscious programming, where exactly does that come from? Like, where do those beliefs come from? How do they develop?
Great question. So as much as people probably are like, "Oh, inner child," like when they hear like all that crap, they're like, everything that like all the crap starts from your childhood. It really does. It even starts, believe it or not, from like when you're in the womb
Yeah.
because
Well, there can
you
actually be an argument that it happens even before that.
there absolutely. I didn't want
Yeah,
to take it there. I
I've
didn't
heard
want to take
I've
it
heard
there.
this, and I was just like, well, I never thought about it that way before. I was listening to a podcast a couple weeks ago, and I heard it mentioned, and I was just like, oh,
Yeah.
well, maybe. I mean, I'm no scientist, I'm no doctor. I don't really know, but it sounds legit that, well, your grandmother carried your mother, and then your mother carried you, and then you had children as well. And then we dive in, and that's the epigenetics of our family line.
So our genetics, our DNA can store memories and trauma up to 14 generations back. So that's why, like, how you could be like, why do I have this? Like, I never fell off a bridge, but I have this like crazy fear of heights,
Right.
right? Or like somebody who naturally can like sit down at a piano and start playing. Meanwhile, like 14 generations back, some great great uncle was able to do that. And now it's like becoming unleashed for you. So, like, yes, absolutely. But to keep the
I think
conversation.
one of my ancestors probably got eaten by a saber tooth, and that's why I don't like cats.
Yes. Dude, I'm so afraid of bugs. It's like unnatural. Okay.
People are gonna
Um
come at me for that one. Sorry, I'm just not a cat person. Sorry.
but no, I get it. I'm a dog person. Um so like for the sake of this brief conversation, from the time you're in your womb, and like especially the ages 0 to 7, you're just basically a walking open subconscious. Okay? You don't have the critical faculty to dismiss information. So everything you take in, everything you see, hear, everything that's witnessed in front of you, whether it's from your parents, siblings, your society around you, what you hear being said about you, right? Oh, Jason's just shy. His brother's the outgoing one. No, Jason always does this. He always gets emotional, right? So like you don't have, it's the easiest way to say it's the reason you can get kids to believe in Santa Claus. They, like, just don't even question really, like, well, they might be like, "Well, how does he get to all the houses?" But it's not like that's not true. That could never even be. So, from ages 0 to 7, you just take everything on. And
So
what
are you
hap
are you telling me Santa Claus isn't real?
I hate to break it to you, right? I should have said earmuffs for anybody listening in the car with their kids.
Man.
Anyway, so
No,
limiting
I'm gonna have to end this.
So, when you hear something like that, Jason's the shy one, his brother's the outgoing one. In that moment, your mind decides to agree with it. Okay. So now something in your brain called your reticular activating system kicks in, and you go through your life looking for evidence to support that. Other people to say that, somebody that you feel like is like you on a TV show or a cartoon or a movie. So it starts to support that decision. And now it becomes ingrained in you as a belief, a limiting belief. And then by the time you're into like young adulthood and your teens, all these things become like couple together and become a limiting identity. So I always say, like, by the time you get to your early 20s, you're sort of like a shell of like that wacky, fun, unique kid that came into the world, you
That
know?
naturally found joy and was happy, and then
Exactly.
life happens and it gets zapped away from you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
good time.
anyway, like you can put all those negative things on, they are not inherently of you. So with subconscious reprogramming techniques, you can take that crap off and get back to the true version of you.
Hmm. And
Hmm.
what would some steps be that somebody could take if they're just now starting this journey and they don't know where to go, what to do, or how to do it, to start finding that joy in their life again, and to, obviously we can't go back, but to rediscover that it never fully left us and that it's still there.
So, the steps are different if you're working with a coach or a professional because licensed professionals use this same type of work. Um, there's specific things that techniques and processes that we take you through to get through that and reprocess it with your adult brain. And then when you let it go, it's sort of like, oh yeah, like I'm not emotionally connected to that anymore. I can see how like I just really don't believe that. If you're trying to do it on the conscious level though, step 1, you're going to hear it over and over again. You have to become aware. So like when that negative thing comes up, like I could never do this long term, right? The first thing you need to say is like, whose voice is that? Like when did I first decide that? When did I first decide to agree with that? And a lot of times when I ask my clients this, they'll be like, you know whose voice that is? It's my sister. My sister said, like, I never went to college. So that's why, you know, starting this business is so hard, kind of thing. Um, so I always say that start to become aware of the negative dialogue that's coming up and like who said it, and then like, is this really true? And then the next thing I always like to say is like, our mind loves to get stuck in a loop. So yeah, again, our brain is just a big computer. So you think that negative thought, it releases hormones in your body, like stress, cortisol, if it's a negative thing. And then again, now it's like, give me more of that. Give me more negative thoughts. Give me more, like, and then you think another negative thought and then you feel the same. So you got to like shock your brain out of that loop. And like, it could be something like literally like grab your nose, like smack your cheek, like be like, no, I like stop. I don't believe that.
Yeah, pattern
Um,
interrupt.
pattern interrupt. Yeah. And, I there's so many different ways you could shift it, but you got to snap yourself out of that because one negative thought leads to another. And then you're like, why do I feel like this? Whatever you're feeling is due to what you're thinking.
It's so interesting because we can also become addicted to those thoughts, feelings, and emotions,
Mhm.
because it's part of us. It's what our nervous system has been primed for. So, like you said, we look for evidence and we seek things out that are gonna, help us feel more of what we're already used to. And of course, your reticular activating system is going to be scanning and looking for these things out in your environment so it can give you all of this back because, well, it's always going to give you more of what it thinks that you want.
Yeah.
And so you really have to start, like you said, dive into questioning these things about yourself. Is this true for me? Why do I think this? Where did this come from? And then when you notice that you're in this negative space or you're having these repeat experiences, this happens all the time with people who have an anxious attachment style. And they say things like, well, all I ever date are avoidance and all I ever date are narcissists. And it's like, well, not necessarily true. I mean, it could be true. Maybe that is who gets selected from what your nervous system and who you have been primed to be as a person, and accept for yourself that this is what I deserve. And so we want to make sure that we're questioning those thoughts, feelings, and emotions and asking, is this really true? Is this what I want to experience? And you can use that pattern interrupt when you have it and it just starts punching you in the face and you're like, no, stop. I don't want this. We talk about chemistry, and a lot of times people are like, but I want that chemistry, I love it.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
but usually that chemistry is really just your nervous system, like a warning signal saying, "Hey, this is really familiar. This is probably not a good thing for you." And it doesn't mean get rid of that person and avoid them and say, "No, you're not for me." It's just an acknowledgement that you might have to double up on doing some work, both of you
Mhm.
together, to navigate this particular relationship.
Yeah, hence why I spent my 20s with somebody that was not the right one,
Oh
but there
no,
was the drama and the passion and the up and down and the
the chaos.
the cheating and the is he, isn't he? Like, oh my god, yeah.
How many years did that go on?
6.5.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
So, what was it for you that you finally said, "You know what? Gotta go."
So, I was always that person, I'm faith filled, and I'm like, "God, just give me a sign. Just give me a sign if he's really cheating on me." And, like, God would always give me a sign, and then I'd be like, "Is that I don't really think that's a sign."
I mean, the sign is you're asking that question. That's the sign.
Exactly. Like, now you know that, but when you're
Yeah.
in it, and of course, he was like my dad. I dated my dad basically for 6.5 years. Um, but God gave me like a brick. Like, he was like, "You don't like these little pebbles I'm trying to throw at you? I'm gonna, like, hit you over the head with a brick," kinda
Yeah.
thing. And I'll never forget, I was like we were engaged. I was planning the wedding. I had just bought my wedding dress. Um, we were down in Florida. It was like the June issue of Allure, and I'm on the beach reading this magazine, and it's from a woman who is a private detective that people hire to see if their spouses are cheating. And at the end of the article, it said,
You're, like, tearing out the article to take home with you.
at the end of the article, it said, if there's one clue that you've come across, and like in every scenario, it like always means they're cheating, what would it be? And she said, one thing, if he has two phones. And like my heart dropped because my ex he owned a cell phone store, and he
Mhm.
had a Nextel and he had a BlackBerry. BlackBerries just came out. And I was never a snooper, but he was like, "Oh no, I just do this on my emails, my work emails." Next morning, fast forward, he's in the shower. I'm like, "Let me just like look at this BlackBerry thing."
So, for clarity, he wasn't given a phone from where he was working as, like, part of the
No, no,
deal of
no, because I
working there,
know that's like
"Hey,
the
I'm
thing.
management, so I need a phone so you can contact me, blah, blah, blah." No?
Yeah, no, no, no.
None
Like,
of that?
I know that's a thing now, but
Yeah,
back
yeah.
then it wasn't. Um, so I look at it, I click on one email, Jason, and it was like a 10-page love letter from like this girl.
Oh
And
my.
she's like, from what she was saying in there, it's like I could tell this was not a fling, this was like a full-on side relationship. And I was like, I remember running in the bathroom and I'm like, "Who is blank?" And he dropped the soap because he probably like was like
No doubt.
and I run out in the street. I hear him trying to turn off the shower and I start dialing and I'm like, "Do you know like who this is Nicole, I'm engaged to him." She's like, "Oh yeah, I know all about you. I didn't know you were."
Oh,
Yeah, she was like, "I didn't know you were in Florida with him though." And I was like, "What?" Like I just hung up because I was like, if you know, there's no talking here.
yeah.
I booked a flight home. I threw the ring back at him. I like didn't even call my mom because she like hated him, and like everybody in my close circle saw what I didn't see,
Yeah.
and he had like systematically tried to isolate me from everybody. So anyway, there's a Lifetime movie a couple days after that of all the crap that went down, but that was the thing.
Man, so it wasn't a Hallmark movie. Have you had
Mm.
your Hallmark movie yet?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes,
Okay. Well, we
I have.
love good stories, so let's hear that story too.
So I just had my 14th wedding anniversary, and my husband, I you know how people say you know when you know? Like, I before he ever had my phone number, anything, I was like, there is something about this person. Like, I just know. He's my husband. And people thought I was crazy. And MySpace was still the thing.
Yes.
And I created my MySpace account to like create a web and draw him in because I was like, I remember like writing my profile and I was like, he's gonna read this and he's gonna like learn.
Right.
I printed out his MySpace picture. I did not know about the law of attraction
Mhm.
or keeping your vision in front of you, but I
Oh, no,
printed out,
you vision boarded him.
dude, I printed out a picture of him from MySpace and hung it on my refrigerator. And I just was like, looking at him just makes me happy. I remember having to take the picture of him off my fridge on our first date. Yeah, it was like crazy, but yeah, I totally chased him.
Wow. 14 years. That's amazing. I love
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
We don't hear enough good stories like that where, how'd you guys meet?
So, I was the bar manager. I was the manager, restaurant manager. My department was the bar of this
Mhm.
big restaurant in Atlantic City, and he was the project manager for the company that built it. And, but we were always just very professional. I was like, "Hey, I need this sink moved. This water line is like leaking or something." And so he would like call his company and blah blah blah.
Meanwhile, you're breaking things like, "Hey."
No, but at that time I did not even like think of him like that because I was still engaged.
Mm.
So I ran into him 2 years later and he was like, "Oh, you married now?" Like, and I was like, "Actually, no." And like, uh, anyway, he was like, "Well, so where do you hang out?" And I was like, "I hang out at this like place on Wednesday." He's like, "I go there sometimes." So it happened to be the night before Thanksgiving coming up. And from MySpace, I knew that was going to be his birthday. So I was like, he's going to be out. I called out of work. I went to like one bar that I knew was going to be busy. He wasn't there. I waited till like 1 in the morning. I was like, there's one other place he could possibly be on this night before Thanksgiving. I was like 28 at the time. And I I drive by myself to this bar. I walk in, I see my cousin. He's like, "Hey." I'm like, "I'm looking for somebody. Like, I got to keep it moving."
Don't have time for you.
I don't have time.
Out of the way.
I'm going through the bar. You know how places are the night before Thanksgiving. We're
Oh,
like
yeah.
shoulder
I
to
do
shoulder.
not miss those days.
No. And
Yeah.
Jason, I'm walking through the crowd, and all of a sudden somebody reaches out and grabs my arm, and I turn around and it's him. And we just talked all night, and we've been together ever since.
I love it. That's a great story.
Thank you.
So for all my anxious attachers out there and anybody who's looking for love, just know that you can manifest your partner
You
and have them come in
absolutely
for you.
can. You absolutely can. And I
But
see Jennifer said, "What's her name?" I missed it. My name's Nicole Frazier. You can find me leveluplifeandco.co or Instagram at leveluplifeandco.
and all of this is going to be linked so you guys will have access and be able to connect with Nicole.
Thank you.
I want to talk a little bit more about looking for the evidence of things that are happening in our life and it becoming the self-fulfilling prophecy.
Okay.
What is your view on that? Because I see this a lot in relationships, and maybe I'm not explaining it in the best way all the time. But when we're looking for the evidence of all these different things in our life, we're actually,
It's alright, I'm a dog mom, I get it.
no, I know she just like, even up there, it just like
I know.
eats the microphone. And so we get to this place where we're looking for all this evidence and it builds up, builds up, builds up. But then are we making these things happen in our life because we're looking for that evidence? That's the question.
So is this for somebody trying to bring the right person into their life or any person into their life or somebody that's already in the situation or both?
We can look at it from both perspectives. Yeah.
Okay. So one, I completely do buy into that at a level because energy is a very real thing in our life. I'm not talking about energy like woo woo, like, energy is scientific. We all have energy, we all have electricity going through our bodies. That's why you can have an EKG on your heart, the encephalogram on your brain, all that stuff. So when we were talking earlier about that thought and emotion loop, okay, when you think a thought and you feel an emotion, it creates an electromagnetic frequency in your body that can be measured. So there, you can literally Google the emotional frequency scale, and scientists have been able to measure different emotions from joy and gratitude all the way down to shame and fear and grief at different hertz. Energy in your body is measured in hertz. So it's a very true thing, a very real thing, that like attracts like. So when you are feeling, no matter how much you try to hide it on the outside, like I did for a long time with hair and makeup and a boob job, like, I
I
have
love it.
since
I love the honesty.
I have since had them taken out. Um, when I healed, I knew I didn't need them anymore. Um, anyway, when you
It's actually a really common thing that ends up
yeah,
happening, and
yeah.
maybe you can share a little bit about that later.
Yeah. So, when you are internally feeling like I'm not really worthy, I have low self-esteem, I have exhibited it now in my life, and people have reflected that back to me like, yeah, she's really not that confident. I'm down here, and even though I say I want a well-adjusted partner who's going to respect me, honor me, whatever, um, and even though I may outwardly find somebody who initially exhibits those things, in down internally, he's really feeling down here. So just like I'm wearing a mask, he's wearing a mask. The person who's well adjusted, healthy, and looking for somebody who is also well adjusted, healthy, and you want to rise together is subconsciously hyper aware of the people that are down here. They feel that energetic drain. Right? You can always feel the vibe of people. It's like why you find your people. So you do create a self-fulfilling prophecy by what you're thinking and how you're feeling about yourself and what you believe is possible for you. Because somebody down here is never going to meet somebody and match long term with somebody up here. You might have a few dates and then it goes and you're like, why didn't he like me? Whatever. Because at some point he's like, whether he realizes it or she realizes it consciously or unconsciously, those flags are going off.
Yeah,
So until you get yourself right inside, um, you will create, you will further create that self-fulfilling prophecy because you're creating and contributing to scenarios that align with what you really believe relationships are, what you could bring to the situation, what you deserve back in the situation. I mean, it's such a deep conversation, but
yeah.
that's the start of it.
Well, it's always what do we deserve back?
Mhm.
And actually knowing what that is and what that looks like, and how are our expectations actually putting us at a disadvantage?
Yeah.
Because we create a story, and you might be dating someone who's extremely secure, but because you're in this place, and we use this as levels, it's not above or below or anything like that, it just is. Somebody's a little bit more secure, they have the ability to say, you know what, this isn't for me, I don't like the way this feels, so I'm actually going
Mhm.
to end this and I'm going to walk away from this.
Yeah.
And to somebody who's on that insecure end of the spectrum, they're going to struggle to understand that because, well, I gave everything to you. I gave myself. I did all these things, and I kept giving, 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 and almost self-abandoning to get to this place of making sure that you were taken care of. I did everything for you, and that actually, to somebody who's more secure, they're going to step back and go, that's actually a little too much for me. I don't want to take that on, and so
Yeah.
they step away. And then the other person then says, well, you must be avoidant or you're a narcissist. And it's like, well, that's not necessarily the case. It could just be that they're not buying the brand of relationship that you're trying to give to them,
Yeah.
and they would rather have something that's more secure from that perspective. And it's not saying that there's anything wrong with you or that you're being diminished in any way. It's just, again, it's frequencies, and you're not a match at this point.
Exactly. So to that point, when I was like, I'm gonna go after my husband, I was like, I've never really seen somebody so well adjusted in my life and outgoing and with all the friends and like, well,
It's like, what is this?
I like specifically remember sitting at my computer looking at his profile and all these pictures of his life. And I was like, Nicole, you have to be ready for this person. Are you ready for this person? Because you can't bring that old, small, unworthy version of yourself to this situation right now, or it'll never work. So that was like the first thing that had me come up higher and have to like let go that layer of myself.
How did that not defeat you further? Because that can be a really hard realization to come across that, you see this person who is well adjusted and you start to have this recognition inside of you that, oh, I have to change. I have to be different. How did you reconcile that internally?
Because I was like, what do you really want, Nicole? Do you want somebody loyal and happiness and like I had to tie it to what I was telling myself that I actually wanted.
So you had to anchor it to a potential.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Whereas in the past, I would say I want those things, but then not show up in the ways I had shit boundaries. You know what I mean? I would allow somebody to like, my ex to say horrible things to me, treat me so disrespectfully, so I had to like have a come to Jesus moment and be like, who am I? What do I want and what do I deserve? And am I ready to not be the barrier, even though I didn't know all the ways that of the work I still had to do, but I knew there was a level I had to match if I was gonna walk into this relationship. I couldn't and I held myself to those boundaries. So, like, as much as I was attracted to him and wanted him, I didn't give him, like, a free ticket, like, "Okay, now so whatever he does, that means I'm okay with it because like, I
Right.
still wanna be in this relationship." I was like, "Even though I feel like he's the one, these are the boundaries I'm setting for myself." And every single day, he has to show up and meet those things. Not like a game, but I just knew and I didn't
I
say
was
like,
gonna
"Hey."
say, did you find yourself testing him?
No, no, I was not a tester, but when he
Okay.
crossed, one of my boundaries that I had set for myself, I just, immediately was like, "Look, I'm not down for this." So, and he rise to the occasion every single time, and that's what let me know he was my person.
So he created and cultivated a safe space for you to be more of yourself.
Yep, great way to put it.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
amazing. I love that. And it's, this massive missing piece in so many relationships, especially for those who are a little bit younger. They're so eager to be in this relationship with someone else and they don't take the time to recognize to be able to see who this person really is. We know it takes around 12 to 18 months to really begin to see who someone is, and then that's based on how much time you're actually spending together.
Yeah.
So, especially like so if you're in distance and you're not having all this time together, then you're not going to know who this person is. It could be years down the road depending on what you have set up on how you're going to close that gap in distance. On that note, what are your feelings on long distance relationships?
I don't I never really sat and thought about it.
It's so
Um,
common right now
yeah.
because of social media, and I run across this experience all the time. I get messages and DMs and comments and submitted stories of, all these horror stories that happened, and it's just like, how can we begin to help people navigate distance relationships, or is it just a hard line? Don't do them.
I don't think in this day and age it can be a hard line. I feel like I was blessed and you're like the same age that that's not how dating was when I was, finding my
Man,
husband.
things were so much different in the late 1900s. It was awesome.
Yes. But if I was out in the world right now, and didn't have my husband or was back into the dating world, um, and I was dating long distance, I feel like I would want the same guardrails on the relationship that you would have if you're dating somebody in person. So yes, obviously you're not going through every day together, but like are you making me a priority and am I making you a priority
Right.
for times to connect, for times to talk, for times to you fly to see me, I fly to see you or vice versa. And then I feel like there just has to be an honest conversation at some point about what's the end game here
Right.
because
How soon can we have that conversation?
yeah, and that was one thing I said with my husband. I was like, in conversations while we were, and it naturally came up. I wasn't like,
Right.
"Hey, listen."
Like,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, just so you know.
Hey, I got something for you. I'm going to put you on notice.
Right. But when it naturally came up, I said, I really, with the life experience I've had, I feel like 2 years, if you want to be with that person or not. Like, that's just me personally.
Yeah.
Like, because you said that first year, I feel like every holiday's a new experience, everything's new, every
Everything's
season's a new
new. Yeah.
experience. But by the time that you're done that second year, you know. So I was like, I am somebody that wants to be married, and I am somebody that feels like I don't need to date somebody for 5 years before we decide if we're gonna take that step. I said, "So for me, 2 years is, like, the limit." So he knew that. And even though I never had to, like, really mention it again, and even though when he proposed, I was, like, completely surprised, it was, like, pretty close to that 2-year mark. Like
What did that proposal look like?
I again, was somebody like I live in Jersey, but I had never been to New England, and I was, like, a Bridges of Madison County fan and like all that crap. It's like, I know I would just love to live in New England. So he took me up for like a whirlwind weekend to like Salem because it was like October, and we went to Boston and we went to Newport. And I love the movie Mystic Pizza, and we ended up doing like a stay in Mystic, and he ended up proposing in Mystic. It was dinner. It was the end of the dinner. I had come back from the bathroom, and he was just like, I remember exactly what he said. He was like, I never, God, now I'm gonna forget what he said. He said, I never, oh my God, I'm not gonna try to say what he said 'cause I'm forgetting. But anyway, he started crying, and I was like, "Oh, babe, what's wrong?" Like, and then all of a sudden he pulls out the ring, and I'm like, "What?" Like, oh my God. And he asked me right there in the restaurant, and it was awesome. We got married a year later.
I love it. That's awesome. He started crying because and I think this is very common for a lot of men.
What kind of
I think the Amazon guy's here or something.
Oh, yeah, my dog goes berserk. FedEx and
Well, she's a fairly large German Shepherd and high energy. So,
I
and the thing
love
is, I took her to the park before this, so there's no excuse for this right now. Like she should
Mhm.
be just chilling. I even filled up her pool out back so she could relax for a little bit.
Oh,
Yeah, she's not
my
relaxed.
dog's oh, there goes my dog.
Oh, listen to that. I love it. No, so I think for a lot of men, they get into this place where most men haven't had really great long-term relationships, and they haven't been to this place where they've been supported and loved and it's felt unconditional.
Mhm.
So when they get to that place where they're prepared to propose, I think that's why it's so fun to watch all the TikToks where the men finally see their bride walking down the altar, and it's just like, because
Yeah.
it's a lifetime of, you know, you feel very lucky in that moment. At the same time, there's been this lifetime of some like pain and rejection and difficulty, and all this other stuff just kind of culminates in this one wonderful, amazing moment that you get to share with your human, you're the person that you want to spend the rest of your life with. And that's really cool. That's why I also don't like the TV shows like Love is Blind. I
Yeah.
don't think they're helpful for that. But they are great for comedy. So
They are,
yeah.
definitely.
Let's see. What are some of the things that you offer from a coaching standpoint?
So I love, the one-on-one experience,
Okay.
and because the type of work that I do with my clients, um, their eyes have to be closed a lot for a lot of these techniques. They're visualizing, we're getting very grounded, we're going back specifically to specific events. I don't do that in a group coaching setting. So I either have my signature process, which is a 4-month journey. It's 3 90-minute sessions a month, and then we stay connected via Voxer, which is a voice memo app in between. Um, the very specific framework is laid out on my website. I literally show you like what we do session by session. And the first, like it's a lot about getting grounded in what our vision's going to be, releasing, spending several sessions releasing limiting beliefs, spending several sessions stepping into that new, not the new identity, but your true identity, right? So it's like there's specific techniques when we work with the subconscious to release things that are holding you back, and then there's specific techniques that we do to install the more empowering
Yeah.
thoughts, beliefs, and version of you.
So it's like getting a new iOS, right?
Exactly, yeah.
We're upgrading the system.
It's like we're getting the bugs out, all the stuff. It's a fun process. It's not heavy and deep where you're like, oh, like I'm dreading each friggin'
Right.
session. Like you leave sessions feeling like pumped. And when you work with the subconscious, shifts happen very quickly. And it sort of is like a mind fuck a little bit because you're like, I can't believe now I don't feel like this anymore.
Right.
Like, why was this such a barrier? And now it's not. Like, it's just crazy. But you just have to be ready to be like vulnerable and shed your crap. So that is a 4-month journey. Or if you're just like, look, I don't know if I'm like ready for the whole thing, but I know there's this like specific thought that keeps popping in my head and I don't know how to get past it. Like if you're a little bit clear on what's holding you back or something you need to work through, I do 90-minute sessions, like a la carte transformation breakthrough sessions. I explain both on my website.
Awesome. Which one do people generally go with? For
The
me,
4-month.
I find that they like the quick one-on-one, one and done sessions, which I thought was really interesting because you would think that you'd want to kind of settle into something a little bit more long term and like build up that level of trust and really start to navigate this stuff. And what I'm finding from that standpoint is it's a lot of relationship stuff, and they're just
Yeah.
like, I got broken up with, I'm frustrated with this, I don't like my job, there's all these other experiences, what can I do? And they're just looking for that, like that next step, whatever that is for them. And so it's wonderful to have people like you that are so willing to put yourself out there to help others in that way, to help them achieve that next level, to take that next step. Because we get these blockages and we have these experiences that cause us to doubt ourselves in all these different ways. And we often don't know what that next step is. And we develop fear around that. And it's like, well, how do I break through this fear to get to the other side? I know I'm capable of this. I just don't know what to do. And so it's people like you that help others achieve that goal. And I absolutely love that.
Thank you. Yeah, for me, it's funny. It's definitely like 70% of the people want the full spiel, and like 30% come in and they like want one thing, and then they'll sometimes end up booking like a couple other a la carte sessions, or it's sort
Right.
of like the ripcord thing that they need. But like I said, if you really want a full shift of like where you're sort of like tackling everything, it's going to be the longer journey. But it goes fast.
Does it?
Yeah.
Let's check out some of these comments real quick. See if there's anything. All right, guys, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments.
Yeah, I see some lovely ladies in the comments.
On Instagram, or because I'm not
I
seeing
think
much
it's
on
on
Facebook.
Restream. Well, yeah, I'm looking on Restream. I don't want to click anything on Instagram and
Everybody's saying your dog is making my dog bark. Well, sorry about that.
Jennifer, I see on Restream. How do I find out info? So my website is Level Up Life and like AND co.co. It's not .com, .co. Level Up Life and Co.co. I thought that was going to be cute. It's probably going to bite me in the butt that I didn't do .com.
No, I don't think so. And it is cute. I think it'll be fine. It really just comes down to getting the name out there. That's all.
Yeah.
Which is pretty easy. You got this. And guys, I'm going to link all this stuff together, so don't worry about that. You'll be able to come back to this live and gain access to all the information that you need. So, Nicole, is there anything that we missed today that you would like to share with everyone else?
Well, wait, Wendy said, so struggling with life purpose. I have to leave my corporate job, but so scared. Glad to know I'm not alone. Thank you for sharing your experiences. Love, love, love. Girl, I know because I left my corporate career in 2019. I left the over six-figure salary, the title. I had so much of my identity tied up in that title and what I do, that I had to take like a full 3 months off after I left. Um, it was the best thing I ever did. I'm not advocating for anybody to do that, and I absolutely did it the right way, and I had a nest egg, like I saved.
Right.
I downgraded my car so I didn't have the big car payment, like everything. Purpose is at that top of the funnel for the levels of your mind. It's purpose and then it's identity. So getting clear on that um, takes really just, you have to clear out the noise. And you can't be taking everything in. It really, they always say, if you're constantly scrolling social media, how can God speak to you? Right? So it's like you have to get quiet. You have to just, this is the part where I do recommend journaling, where you just free write whatever the heck's going to come out. No intention, no prompt. Like, oh, and this is a huge thing. Okay. Never ask yourself why questions. Why can't I decide what I want to do? Why don't I know what I want to do? Why don't I know my purpose? Why am I so afraid to leave, right? Because a why question activates a part of your brain that causes rumination. And you just like spin and spin and spin and you never get to the answer.
Yeah.
So if you have to journal and use any prompts or ask yourself something, ask yourself a what question. What makes me feel like I don't know what my purpose is? What makes me afraid to leave the corporate space? Do you hear like how that's different than like why are you so afraid? Like a why question sounds accusing, whereas a what question just lowers the temperature in your mind. So spend some time doing that first, and don't be afraid to like dream big, right? Because that's another way that we like limit ourselves. And that's all those limiting beliefs and behaviors. I can only get to this level. I only have this level of education. I have an associate's degree. And in my corporate career, I was managing doctors of physical therapy, nurse practitioners, exercise physiologists. Like, you, limits are an illusion. And I know that sounds like BS, but it really, really is. So when you start writing, just like, what would I love to do? If time was no issue, money was no issue, education was no issue, what lights me up? That's just like a little preview, but a transformation session could be helpful also to like dial in specifically to what is blocking you from getting to that answer.
She's nonstop.
No.
Hang on one second.
Let's see. Jen said, my life is a hot mess. I can barely function right now, girl. I get it. It's like, but a lot of times, if you just reframe this is like the breaking point, right? Sometimes you have to get to that point where you're like, everything is broken before you're like, I need to make a change, right?
All
Sorry,
right.
Jason, I sort of jumped into Jen's hot mess question. She said she could barely function. But I said sometimes that's a great spot to be because
Yes.
you can only go up from there. And sometimes when like only a few things are broken, but this is working great over here, you sort of like ride it out, and it's almost the worst thing to do because oh yeah, I love that. Heather said the breakdown before the breakthrough. It's chef's kiss to that remark.
Absolutely. It's interesting. I left policing a year ago and started on all of this. And you're right in that there's an identity that's associated with the past versions of you.
Mhm.
And you have to be willing to let that go. So you ask yourself the questions: who am I? Where am I going? What am I doing? Why am I doing it? And then the next is the how. How do I get there? And journaling, like you said, is such an important part of that, to be able to discover who you really are on the inside and to challenge those thoughts, feelings, and emotions that keep you feeling stuck. To actually dive into this stuff, and you get to this place where you start reauthoring your story and looking at things that leave you feeling powerless, and you make that shift into becoming more powerful. You begin to own these past experiences that maybe they weren't great and they weren't all that positive, and you did find yourself feeling insecure. But what can you learn from that? What can you do with it? And can you build off of that for the future?
Yeah.
And we cover a lot of that in the 21-day self-love challenge. So for those of you who are interested, I'm going to pot that up here for a minute.
Mhm.
It is currently $50 off through December 7th. It's a self-paced program. You actually get 22 days of 22 speakers and over 30 hours of content. So if you're interested in that, join it. Heather was in it. She actually just commented here a little bit ago, but you can check that out, see if it's for you, or don't. But share it with your friends. I think you'll enjoy it.
If I could just respond to Jennifer real fast. She said, "My
Yeah.
fiance cheated too, but I can't let him go and it sucks." So these are some things you could start to journal around and just let it flow, right? You said, "I can't let him go." All right. What makes you think you can't let him go? Okay. And then the next question is, what if you did? Right. And speak to yourself in the third person, because sometimes it feels just too raw to be like, why can't I, or, what is making, like, why can't I let him go? Right. So, or what if I did let him go? So, you know, what if you did let him go?
And you're
Right.
not crazy when you do this, guys. I want to
No,
let
you're
you know
not.
it's a very common thing to do, to kind of take yourself out of the experience and to see it from that third person perspective.
Yeah. And then ask yourself this: what if I don't let him go? What happens then? What's 5 years going to look like? 10 years going to look like? Um,
I always say, can you do this for the next 50 years? If things never change, if they never grow, develop, expand, or become different, can you do exactly this? Because
yeah.
most people, guess what? They don't change that much.
No, and I'm gonna tell you something, and, like, I know Jason's more of, like, lives in the relationship zone and is more up on, like, the attachment styles and all that kinda
Yeah,
stuff.
we're the self-love zone here.
Okay,
Attachment's a part of it, but
okay,
self-love.
but I'm gonna share with you because, like, I have all brothers and, 3 brothers, and, like, so I'm very comfortable in male energy, and, like, most of my closest guy friends have always been men, and they've all been cheaters too, which is very strange, and when I would ask them certain things like, "Well, why do you keep cheating?" Um, one said something and I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's, like, horrible, but so probably true for so many men." He said, "I've already done the worst thing I could possibly do to her, and she stayed. So, like, there's really nothing to prevent me from not doing it again. Like, what's gonna make her leave?" And that was my experience. Like, I walked in on my ex one time, and he did this, like, whole mind fuck on me, like, and had me believing it was her fault because it was one of my friends, and I stayed. Like,
Mm.
it doesn't change. It just got worse and worse and worse, and I left that relationship like a shell of myself, and that's, I feel like, the hard question you need to ask. Is your self, your person, worth sacrificing for fear of stepping away and moving towards something better? Because I am living proof that there is better on the other side. And there's nothing worse. I used to say sometimes, like, our the door to our house was the heaviest door I had to open every day because I
Mm.
really never knew what was going on. So you just have to decide your life can look exactly how you want it to look. That is not a crock of shit. But you're the only one who can decide whether or not you're going to get it.
Man, I will tell you guys, and there's no victim blaming here or anything like that. As you enter into these new relationships, it is your job, it is your duty to yourself to ask deeper questions, to take your time, to slow things down, to get to know this person, to
Yeah.
understand their heart, to try to figure out what their intentions are. And when they say what those intentions are they living it? Look at their experiences in the past. What evidence do you have for the type of person that this actually is? Ask them the question, how did your last relationship end? Oh, well, they were all crazy. If they say that, probably not going to be the person for you. You want to let them go.
Yep. Absolutely.
So don't be afraid to ask questions and get to know people. I think we get to this place where you hear this a lot. They're a 10 out of 10, but. And it's that but that's going to cause all the problems down the road because you ignore that one but and you're going to find yourself for not dealing with it in that moment. 5 years from now, you're going to have to deal with it.
So this is something I learned and I will die on this sword, okay? Love is not the most important thing in a relationship. Love is third. So trust has to be first. Because how can you love somebody you don't trust? Okay? And then appreciation is second. Because if that person doesn't appreciate you and you don't appreciate them, like it again, it's not going to work because think, I love him but he doesn't appreciate me. Well, how does that sound, right? So it's trust, it's appreciation, and then it's love. And that's how I feel like really healthy relationships work. And if somebody's cheating, there is no trust because the cheating is just one thing, one way that they're hiding. There's all these other things that come along with that.
Yeah. And a big part of it really comes down to understanding that you have to trust yourself,
Mhm.
that no matter what happens, you're always going to be okay because you now have all these tools that they learn from working with you or working with me or other coaches and therapists and everybody that's out there. But you trust yourself to know that I have all these tools. I've built up this repertoire. I have, everything on my belt that I can deploy at a moment's notice when I'm going through a hard time, when I'm struggling. I have a place to go now. I can move into my breath. I can do different somatic releases. I can meditate, I can journal. And now that you have all these tools available to you, you can say, you know what? I love you. I love being with you. I love this relationship, but there are things that I'm not going to tolerate within the context of this relationship because I respect
Mhm.
myself and I love myself and I know what I want and I know what I deserve from a relationship. And if it does end, I know that no matter how it ends, I'm
Yeah,
always going to be okay. There's always a next step.
absolutely. And if you haven't acted the way or shown up in your relationship in a healthy way in the way that you need to, there's no reason you can't start right now. I always say, like, you're allowed to change, you're allowed to evolve. You're under no obligation to be the same person you were a year ago, yesterday, or 15 minutes ago.
Yeah.
So, like, if don't ever fall for like it never bothered you before, well, whatever. It's like, well, it bothers me now. And like, I'm letting you know because if this happens, this is how I am going to react. It's not a threat, but it's just this is what I need to feel safe in this relationship. Like, I don't know. I feel like if you need the cheating thing, I just once that trust is broken,
Yeah. But it's a true statement. We hear this all the time. I do it because you didn't leave. You didn't hold me accountable. And it's like, well, you're not a child. I shouldn't have to hold you accountable. You should know that that's probably not the right thing to do. And you did it anyway.
Yeah.
you
And
know?
don't buy any excuse they flip on you as to, like,
Mhm.
why it happened, how you had a part in it, how I was guilty, I wasn't sleeping with them enough, whatever. No. That is not the way normal people act or react in those kind of situations. Like,
Yeah, and that goes back to some of the programming and conditioning, some of the things that you grew up with, or maybe that you observed. Maybe you had parents that, cheated on each other at some point, and, they stayed together for whatever reasons, oh, we stayed together for the kids because it was somehow going to benefit them in the long term. But now you're conditioned to expect that that's the type of relationship that you should have and that you deserve in the long term, because it was never modeled to you any other way other than what you saw on television. And well, that's just television, that can't happen in real life. And I'm not saying everybody's going to be Ozzy and Harriet, but because we're all going to have our challenges and things that we have to overcome in our relationships. But you can have a very kind, loving, and growth oriented relationship with someone.
yeah, and that's right, Heather. It's the choice. I know when my ex, he was like looking back as somebody with like the training and knowledge, I could see like he was very insecure in his past. He was like overweight as a kid, late bloomer, turned into like the hot guy, bad boy, huge adrenaline rush junkie, dirt bike, street bike, any freaking kind of thing. Um, and got his validation from like attention. So the bravado, the swagger, drew in women, and he never said no. He never said no. And I was the idiot home cooking, cleaning, paying half the mortgage, working
Uh,
50
you
hours a
you
week,
you weren't an idiot. You were in love at the time.
Yeah. So, there's always gonna be a reason. One of my other friends who's like was a serial cheater, he's like, "I'm just so surprised every time a girl comes on to me. I get so excited, I just can't turn it down." And I'm like, "Oh my god." It's like you see all these different weird ways that this behavior manifests,
Yeah.
with people, but none of them have ever changed. I have I know too many guys that are married and they might go a year without cheating. There's always another one. There's always another one.
Yeah,
And
and even
everybody knows about it. All their friends know. It's so embarrassing. That was, like, so embarrassing. I was so embarrassed for myself, even though I didn't shouldn't be. I
right.
don't want you to feel like that, but I was so embarrassed. And you know what people said to me? "Nicole, we thought you knew." It was, like, everywhere. He was all over the place, but he always did it when I was at work. So I came home and he was on the couch, and I had no idea, except the time I walked in on him and, like an idiot, went back.
And
So again, it just shows you
nobody told you.
nobody told me.
Well, hopefully you have better friends now.
Yeah.
That's
Well, at the time, you know what happens? And I don't know if that's happening in Jennifer's world. Like your friends become their friends. They sort of isolate you from the other
yeah.
people because your friends don't want to be around it because they see that they're not good for you. Your family doesn't want to be around it because they see that they're not good for you. So then the people in your world are really his people and they're not going to go against. They're loyal.
Hmm. Well, they always go back to birds of a feather flock together. So
Yeah.
if you see a group of people, like you see this friendship group, and they're all accepting of that one person that's cheating in the group, then there's a higher likelihood that the rest of the people in that group are also cheaters because they
Yeah,
tolerate that behavior within the group.
absolutely.
Yeah. So be careful who you align yourself with.
Yes.
And that's always another thing with like social media, is making sure that you're aligning yourself with people that, are kind of in the same space, but, they hold that level of integrity with their programs and what they do and the experiences that they're giving to other people through, whether it's their coaching or just the content in general. I've noticed some things, and it's a strange world being on the internet and doing this kind of stuff. So I feel very lucky and blessed to be able to connect with someone like yourself who is genuine in your purpose, and you do care about other people, and you do want to see them, we want to see them win, and that's
Yeah.
really what it's all about. And so, for those of you in your friendship groups, if you don't have this or you're not the person that can do this, be the person that wants to see other people win. You
Yeah.
want to see other people do well in all areas of their life, because you'll hear it all on motivational TikTok and social media, that you have to be this certain way all the time. And it's like, well, no, I'm not in competition with you. I know what I'm creating. I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm presenting, and I know what this is ultimately going to be in the long term. So I'm not in competition with you, and I can actually want to see you win and do well. And not just you. I'm just saying in general with
Absolutely. I
all
get
this
it.
stuff.
And I agree.
It's like your network is your net worth at the
Yeah.
end of the day. And I keep pushing for 2024. Like, I want to bring more creators together, especially for these Facebook lives that we're going to be doing. Um, because I think that's the place where everybody wins. We do more stuff like this, and then you grow and expand and get all your stuff out there for everybody to see, and the recognition comes with that. So
I love it. I'm here for it.
I appreciate it,
I'd
Nicole.
love to come back.
And you will, absolutely. So, Nicole, thank you so much for being here today. Tell everybody one more time how they can reach you and how they can work with you.
So you can reach me on Instagram at Level Up Life and Co, or you can visit my site at leveluplifeandco.co. I have a morning 15-minute routine. The first thing that kickstarted my journey, my transformation journey, the first thing I found that like really worked for me, because every single day you got to get control of that mindset. Again, your mind is a supercomputer. So every single day you wake up and what happens? Your mind's like, who was I yesterday? And it installs that program. And you just start running on a loop, running on a loop. You get up, you do the same thing every day. You go get your rube, go make the same breakfast, whatever it is. So if that's not supportive of you, right? What if the person you were yesterday isn't who you want to be today? You got to do something different. So head to my website or to the link in my bio on Instagram. You can grab my 15-minute morning positive mindset kickstart, so you can start to get yourself primed for the positive, abundant life you want to move towards.
Awesome. Nicole, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
See you again soon.